Good afternoon to you. Mark's out of HurricaneTrack.com here. It is Monday, the 20th of June, 2022. Time for the Hurricane Outlook and discussion. We have a lot to talk about. It is Monday, and usually those are much longer because I go into more detail on things. Kind of a good way to set the stage for the week ahead. In my morning update, What's Up in the Tropics with yours truly, Mark Sudduth, I talked about a tropical wave out in the Atlantic that has kind of chiseled away at the Saharan air layer a little bit, and a few other things that I kind of teased upon, and we will go into those topics in more detail here this afternoon. All right, good to have you along with me. Let's get started. First, a satellite animation here courtesy of Tropical Tidbits. Tropical wave out here in the eastern Atlantic, another one here approaching the Windward Islands and the coast of South America, another area of moisture and energy in and around the vicinity of Central America, another tropical wave. And then there is Celia in the southeastern Pacific. That'll go on to probably regenerate again on its way out into the open Pacific. And then, look at this big heat dome starting to build back again over the lower 48. There's the trough that brought the record low temperatures to areas in eastern North Carolina and others. In fact, some frost advisories up here in Maine. It's Maine, so why not, right? It's pretty far to the north. But, really an overall decent look to the pattern here, considering that it is the end of June. So what we're going to do is look ahead to the next 10 days. It's pretty fitting. We have the last third of June coming up. That's 10 days. 30 days in the month of June. So we'll take a look out on the models and whatnot over the next 10 days to close the month out. Now, typically June is quiet, even in a year when it is predicted to be a very busy season. June does not have to be very busy for that predictability of the busy season to happen. Does that make sense? In other words, June is supposed to be quiet, and just because it is doesn't mean the rest of the season will be quiet as well. All right, moving on along. The Saharan air layer, yes, out here it has been, well, let's use a color that shows up better. It has been eroded away, not all the way, but that's a pretty good dent in it from that tropical wave coming off Africa. I showed that in my morning update with the total precipitable water product from the University of Wisconsin. You can see it's all chiseled away out here, and just a little bit of a path forward for how these systems are going to develop later in the year. Now, make no mistake, there is still plenty of Saharan air out here, as you can clearly see, all through the area, extending into and across the Caribbean. In fact, our good friend Brent down in St. John in the Virgin Islands there sent me this graphic, or this picture. Look, it says SAL. I'll spell it out for you. Saharan air layer on his dashboard. I guess Brent has to keep the windows up, because if this is happening when the windows are up, yikes. You'd think that would happen when the windows are let down. But I guess it's pretty hot down there, too. You might have to drive around with the windows down. But yeah, look at that. That fine particulate matter. That is this stuff that comes off Africa, makes its way across, and it settles out over these land areas, even as far west sometimes as parts of the lower 48. Now, I will say this. The Saharan air layer has not been monstrous this year. Remember in 2020 there was that real big one, and it got termed, who knows how the trend started, like Godzilla outbreak of Saharan air or whatever it was. Everything in 2020 was wacky. This is more of your run-of-the-mill, average Saharan air kind of stuff. Nothing really out of the ordinary that I can see. And especially, again, considering, hey, look, we're eroding part of it here off the coast of Africa, like I pointed out. All right, so moving on along from Brent's picture to anomalies. What's happening out there? Well, in the eastern Pacific, the La Nina is holding on. It's moderated a little bit of a warming trend, but nowhere near getting towards El Nino. You can forget that this year. Meanwhile, the Atlantic basin still anomalously warm across the eastern Atlantic, the far north reaches of the Atlantic, the deep tropics down here, you name it. Then this area in the subtropics, cooler than average. And so, if you go in and just put a W here for warmer, and then a C here for cooler over warm, that is the typical setup for a very busy hurricane season. Your rising motion is focused down here, and you got all that warm water relative to average. It is more than likely going to be a very busy season later on, probably August and beyond. Yeah, might have something in July, you never know. Zooming in on it a little bit, there you are, there's those anomalies in the deep tropics. Look at the Gulf here. We'll zoom in on that more in just a moment as well. And then there's that cooler water up in the subtropics. This is not all warm, so that you compete with what's happening farther to the south down here. When this is all red and orange, and these anomalies are very strong, everything competes with each other, and it just gets all out of balance. This is the type of look, almost textbook, to give you a very busy hurricane season. And then look at this as we zoom in. Look at the legend down here. 1, 2, 3, 4 Celsius, the different color gradations. And you can see that gradient up here. Look at that. All across the northern Gulf there, very warm compared to the long-term average. Several degrees Celsius, 3, 4, 5 maybe in some isolated spots where the water is shallowest. Wow. And we can see that reflected on the actual sea surface temperatures here. All of this through here, very, very warm, 30 degrees Celsius or higher. 31 Celsius, that is ridiculous. Right up against the Louisiana coastline, 29 Celsius throughout the rest of the northern half of the Gulf. My, oh my, we got that big heat wave coming up, and that's just going to sink the air. It compresses, and the Gulf is not going to be disturbed. No cold fronts coming. You can forget that. I mean, wow. I can't. I mean, I couldn't live there. So, I'm not wearing a hat, but hats off to you folks that work and live down there. Be careful. And, once the hurricane season really gets cranking, this could be important. It really could. Looking off the East Coast and Mid-Atlantic, well, north of about 36 latitude up to New England, still a little too cool for me, and certainly too cool for tropical cyclone activity. South of that area, let's say Nags Head, and point south and west along the coast, 80, 81, 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Water temperatures will still climb probably all the way to the latter part of August, depending on what kind of activity we have. So we got a long ways to go. Water temperatures are still on their way up. This is important too. Look over here in the western part of the graphic, the left side of it. We'll use the color white to make it pop. Look at that. That's that loop current in there, might trying to break off into a warm eddy. I'll explain what that is later if we need to. Upper ocean heat content all through here, pretty high. Even fairly substantial right up against the Florida Peninsula on the east side and off the coasts of Georgia and South Carolina. Water temperatures, important, but the upper ocean heat content, that is to say, how deep is that warm water? If it's just at the surface, like right at the skin of the ocean, that's not going to do it. It's got to extend deep. Deep warm water. That's what those colors tell us. Well, they tell us something that I don't want to have to even try to explain. It's all about energy and joules per kilogram, centimeters square, whatever. I forget it from my geography and oceanography classes. And when they say, when am I going to ever use that math again? That's why I would just explain it with colors. The brighter the colors, the more energy there is. Let's just look at it that way. But it's important because there is a lot of upper ocean heat content. That's what matters in the long term. I mean, at least for now, nothing's coming along to take advantage of it. I guess that's the good news here. All right, so what about the next 10 days? This is the GFS, the 850 millibar chart or graphic, whatever, the layer. There's the tropical wave. Let's highlight it this way. Out in the Atlantic, you can barely see it, but there's another one right there. And then another one that's fairly well reflected in the modeling. This is the current time frame. Let's move this out 10 days and see what happens. 48 hours, 72, 96, day 5. Nothing really showing up. Big old area of high pressure dominating the Atlantic basin. Day 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Stopping at day 10 at the very end of the month. Nice little tropical wave there. Maybe another one here. Maybe something in the central Caribbean. And a giant area of high pressure sitting out over the Atlantic. That's about it. Nothing that shows up like this. Let me back this up so I don't give away the ending, so to speak. Let me show you what we're looking for. This is what it looks like. In the eastern Pacific, there is Celia about 90 hours out. So let's back it up a little bit more even. So watch what happens. We go from the current time frame. You also see Bloss out there. It quickly dissipates. Bye-bye. And then there comes Celia back again. That, my friends, is what we're looking for in the Atlantic. In case you didn't know, I've probably said it enough times by now. You understand. And we didn't see anything like that on the Atlantic side over the next 10 days. And in fact, Celia should just head on out and eventually fade out into nowhere land, well southwest of the Baja. All right, from a humidity perspective, green is humid, brown is not so humid. Good way to explain it. Same thing 10 days out. You don't really see much of anything that curls up. A few tropical waves, that's what they look like. Look, there's one there, there's another one there, maybe another one there. Pretty easy to see. Look at that big old high pressure out there. The Saharan air layer is still prominent coming off Africa. That's about 9 days out, something like that. And then all the way out here to day 10, just to kind of prove a point, you see what I'm talking about, right off the coast of Africa, kind of like where we are today. Another tropical wave coming off, putting a dent in the Saharan air, not quite as prominent. It's still there. I mean, it's only the end of June, and climatologically speaking, that is still not anywhere close to prime time for hurricane activity, but the pattern is gradually changing to where more moisture will come across the Atlantic and eventually give us a shot at development. All right, so looking at the severe weather outlook, it's still severe weather season. Let's go back to this because I messed it up. So today we do have an enhanced risk in the northern plains, the high plains, so be aware of that. Tomorrow, a little bit less of an overall threat, and then by day 3, that threat, marginal as it may be, shifts to the Ohio Valley and beyond. But also, notice this through here, very important, these North American monsoon getting started right on cue. It's usually around June 15th or so for a few months that cranks up. And it's very interesting if we look at the GFS. There's Arizona right there, just to get your bearings for you. Terrible outline here. There's New Mexico. That's the four corners right there. There's Utah. There's Colorado. There's New Mexico. I'll just put one letter for these abbreviations. And there's Arizona. All right? All right. So let's put this into motion. Look at the green. Yes, you need that. You need that so bad. I cannot emphasize that enough. The more green out there, the better. The more moisture. Ooh, look at that. By about day 10, pretty good plume coming up right into Arizona and southwest Utah. Let's take that away, make it a little bit prettier. There we are. And clean. Yeah, we really need that. The problem out west is gigantic. I don't want to get into it. We're not going to turn this into an editorial piece or whatever, but the water problems out west is significant. Lake Powell, Lake Mead. Wow, I was reading an article about that. The monsoon helps. I'm very fascinated by it from a geographic perspective, the microclimate perspective, the impacts perspective on society. Plus, it is amazing to see the desert come to life. Lightning storms, the dust storms, you get dust devils when it's really hot, a lot of that rising air, etc. And I want to go out there and see it. So maybe, just maybe towards the end of the month, I might consider heading out there. We'll see. I'm planning on it at some point. It's just expensive as all get out, as you know, so I have to be careful as when and where I spend the crowdfunding money that we have. But the monsoon looks pretty active, and that is a good thing when all is said and done. And look, you can even see that reflected here with these flash flood watches for a good chunk of New Mexico, but the heat is starting to build again in the upper Midwest. There's that little frosty area in Maine. Wow. I don't want any frost. Let's hold off till December for that, shall we? All right, don't forget, we are supported. I mentioned funding. How do I pay for a trip to Arizona? That's probably $3,000. And when all is said and done, the airline, the car, the hotel, everything, it's through this, Patreon. That's exactly how it's done. People from all over the world, we're about 640 strong, plus a couple of dozen people left over from our legacy HurricaneTrack premium services. We started that way back in 2005. Now, we are in the era of crowdfunding. It's completely up to you, but it's not just, hey, I'm trying to sell you something, buy my product. It's not that at all. You actually become part of it. We interact every day on Discord at the $4 level and up, and at the $10 level, you have access to all that stuff you see there. What is that stuff? That's HurricaneTrack Insider. Yes, our what used to be premium services and the old Hurricane LiveNet site from way back in 2005 has grown. We have these live cameras. Even when nothing's happening, like a field mission, we have all these different cameras that are out there. If I can get one to pop up. That's such a neat thing here. These are all hosted by different people. Our supporters, these are in their backyards. Seriously, this is Jeff over in Weatherford, Texas. You can even see the heat there. I mean, this is such a cool thing. That is what the crowdfunding helps to support. We have our interactive map here. We'll give it a second to load. This was created by one of our Patreon supporters, Will Woodgate from the UK. The interactive map there, you can zoom in and see what's happening with tropical cyclone activity. We even have our cameras on here that you can check out. Orange Park, there's the ones down at Jeff's place. This is a different Jeff. There's the Jeff over in Weatherford, Texas. A really, really cool thing. You can be a part of it. You just go to patreon.com/HurricaneTrack and get on the inside. You know, see stuff from this side. Help us out. Be a part of it. We got 50 people on Discord as I'm speaking. I love Discord. It's great. We have an interactive chat here too, this old C-Box thing. But I gotta tell you, the Discord, I know why the gamers like it. It took me about a year to get into it myself. Our back end really encouraged me, and I have fully embraced it. So that's what we do, and you can be a part of it. Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. I'll put the link. Well, the link's always there in the description of today's video. Speaking of today's video, we're almost done. You got to do me a favor, as they say, like, subscribe, share, let the algorithms of the great YouTube do what they do and spread the magic of this update. This is a long one. Like I said, every Monday I try to make it lengthy. We go into great detail, so I appreciate you sticking around. Don't forget, we do have the What's Up in the Tropics every morning. I've already done 20 of them in a row, and my intent is to do 183 before it's all said and done. Why 183? Because the hurricane season is 183 days long. It's true. Look it up. All right? And you have to get notified. I mean, you could notify people. Sure. Hey, Mark just put out a video. But if you want YouTube to tell you that, you got to hit that little bell. Tell it, notify me when Mark posts a video, especially when we go live. You don't want to miss that. All right, I'm done. Let's get this on for you to enjoy. Thanks for sticking around and listening and watching and all that good stuff. I'm Mark Sudduth, Hurricane Track. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning with another episode of What's Up in the Tropics.